Hello, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to be reading love triangle romances for an entire week. Super excited to be doing this one. I have been doing a series here on my channel where I read different romance tropes for an entire week and kind of let you know how this trope stacks up against the rest. And I'm super excited to be doing love triangles in specific because I feel like this is a trope that is often misunderstood, a trope that a lot of people tend to not like, and I am aiming to prove in this video that love triangle romances are valid and can be very good if they're done well. So like I have in all of the previous videos, I have pulled all of these books from a host of various different sources so that they're not just all books that I think are going to be great, right? These are books that have been proven to be great by other people as well as proven to be great by me. So the reread this time is going to be What He Doesn't Know by Candy Steiner. This is a love triangle that kind of opened my eyes to love triangle romances and what they could be for adult romance specifically. I feel like we often read love triangles in YA, but not often in adult romance. So I really liked this one and I'm excited to revisit it. Next up, we have The Black Swan Affair. This is a booktube choice by Cheyenne from That Tall Book Girl. I am very curious to read this one. The cover of it is certainly interesting. This one I don't know much about. I mean, I don't really know much about any of these, but hopefully it is a love triangle romance to die for. Next, we have Serenading Heartbreak. This is one that I got off of recommendation from Amazon. One of the things you can do on Amazon, if you didn't know, is search by trope. So you could just search up love triangle romance and you have to kind of scroll past the ads a little bit, but you will find ones that kind of fit that trope requirement. So that is one that I selected. Then we have Gravity by Sarah Kate. This is an Instagram pic. I feel like whenever I search the hashtag love triangle romance, this one came up a fair amount, so I felt like it was a good choice. And then lastly, we have Transcend. This is one that I got from the YouTube comments from my last trope video when I asked, hey, I'm doing love triangles next, what would you recommend? A lot of y'all said Transcend. Not had much luck with Julie Ann, but I'm hoping that maybe this time around I have success. So let's go ahead and get into the vlog portion of this video. All right, kicking off the vlog strong with a reread, I decided to pick up What He Doesn't Know today. This is a book by Candy Steiner, and it's funny, I actually just saw a thread posted by Candy where she says like, what's your unpopular romance opinion or something like that, and hers was unpopular opinion, I like cheating in romances. And that makes sense because that is definitely a part of this romance, and it I think goes to show that Candy's passionate about that kind of element and or is able to write it well. I guess maybe liking something and being able to write it well are not like synonymous, but I feel like that's definitely the case here. So I always like to pick up my reread first in these videos. I don't always do it, but I like to do it because I think it just proves to me that any trope can be good if it's executed well, and it's a good comparison point, I guess, for the other books that I haven't read before. So in this book, we have Charlie, Cameron, and Reese. Charlie is dealing with a lot in her life. Unfortunately, her and her husband have been married for 8 years, but they're dealing with a lot of like hard challenges, especially dealing with the loss of their twin sons. One of them was a stillborn and the other one died after 9 days in the NICU. So Charlie and Cameron's relationship is just very rocky, and it has been for the past couple of years after this unfortunate and just like great loss. They're just having hard times connecting. I think Cameron is really keeping to himself and Charlie really wants to like lean into the grief and just really connect with Cameron, and he's just not doing that. And so she's just kind of walking through her life emotionless and just unhappy and unsatisfied until Reese walks back into her life. And Reese is someone who she knew from her past. He was one of her childhood best friends. He was someone that she had a huge crush on, and he is teaching at the same school that Charlie's teaching at. She is a kindergarten teacher, he is a piano teacher. They just have this connection that is in the past, but also could be part of Charlie's future, just depending on if she is willing to give Cameron a second chance or if she wants to kind of move in a new direction and connect with someone who is willing to be vulnerable. For his part, we also have Reese, who is dealing with loss. He's kind of able to connect with Charlie because of his loss. So his mom, dad, and sister unfortunately passed away in a mass shooting event. Yeah, he's obviously dealing with a lot of hard emotions because of that. I think it happened like 3 years before the story takes place, so fairly recent loss. Same with Charlie's. So it's an interesting story, just filled with a lot of mixed emotions, and I just love how a love triangle romance just really shows the humanity of people, because as much as I love love and I love romance, I don't believe in soulmates. I don't believe that there's just one person for everyone, and to see how different people complement different parts of you and how they could potentially be the right match with you for different reasons, I just think is so interesting. And I also just think it helps the main character sort of grow and also realize, like, again, ultimately what they want out of life by, I guess you could say, experimenting with the other legs of the triangle if the love triangle is executed well. I think that's the only thing I don't like about love triangles, to be honest. I think in YA especially that's such a problem. You have like a weak leg of the triangle, usually a hero who is just definitely not going to be the choice, right? He's always just much less compatible with the heroine, has fewer like just characteristics in general, and then ultimately does something so horrible that the heroine could not possibly end up with him, right? That's just always always how it works. Twilight comes to mind. There's just so many different romances with like that. The Hunger Games, that sort of vibe. You're just like, obviously I don't want her to end up with Gale or whatever. So I love love triangles where all legs of the triangle are equal and where you're just really like, who is this person going to end up with? And I could definitely see reasons why they would end up with each. I just think it creates a compelling atmosphere for growth and change of the characters, and it's just fun and juicy and dramatic to read. I like a juicy and dramatic romance. I've always been into the melodrama, and so this is just like my perfect trope. I really wanted to do this video in particular to just show that this trope is more than what people consider it to be. I think I've always had a soft spot for it, even when I could see the flaws in it in a lot of the YA romances, but when I see it executed just so well in adult romance, I'm like, you'll have to read this, you'll have to understand why this trope can be so amazing. I love it so much, and I'm so excited to do this video, obviously. So again, I'm 50% into this book. I know how it ends, I know who she ends up with, and there's actually a sequel to this story. It's a duology. So this first book kind of lays the groundwork for this choice ultimately that Charlie's going to have to make, but the second book is where that is kind of executed. I'm not going to spoil obviously who she ends up with, but it's interesting reading this book this time around because who she ended up with is not who I wanted her to end up with, and so now I can see that other character's point of view a little bit better, or what characteristics they have that Charlie could ultimately be drawn to. I mean, I could see both sides of the story. I like both points of view last time, but even more so this time. So anyway, excited to finish this off and tell you if this is still a 5-star, which I'm sure it will be, and wax poetic about how amazing this is. I'm gonna go though because my camera's dying. I'll see y'all bright and early tomorrow morning with my final thoughts. All right, so I finished What He Doesn't Know by Candy Steiner, and I thought we could talk about it and I could give you like my final thoughts and rating. So I will say second time around, I wasn't quite as enamored with this one as I was the first time, and I think that's just by nature of the story being kind of like, who's she going to end up with, and me knowing who she's going to end up with, that makes it a little less exciting. I think initially I did give this book 4 stars, and it does feel like a 4-star read again this time. And what's nuts is that I read this book for the first time in 2021, I think like the 24th through the 25th of November, and then this time around I read it November 25th through 26th, so like almost exactly 2 years ago I read this book. I guess it just gives me Thanksgiving vibes. I don't know. I really like, again, the drama of this book. I feel like it was less emotionally charged than I remember it, but again, it's like, I'm not misremembering the book, but like, am I not as impressed because I've read it before? I just can't really decide. But I'm not going to judge it too harshly or anything because I still enjoyed it. And there's also like a whole other book where she actually makes the decision. So you should pick this one up. I will say this was like a really fun one. Let me just tell you what my rating is for this book and we can move on to the other ones. My overall rating is a 4-star. I really enjoyed this book. I think it's a perfect culmination of what a love triangle romance could and should be. You've got 2 equally good choices for our heroine, and they bring out different things in her, and I just think it was fun to read. She has sexual tension with both of them too, which is really fun. So 4 stars overall rating. Sexiness, I think I'm gonna give it a 3. There definitely is some sexiness here, especially like as our heroine basically cheats on her husband, let's be real, which like should be hot, but like it was in this setting because like you're kind of mad at the husband, but like feel for him. And anyway, it was hot. Okay, it was a hot book. It wasn't like the steamiest thing ever because I do think this is more on the emotional side of romance rather than the super smutty side of things. So I think 3 feels good. And then in terms of whether this book could exist if it didn't have a love triangle, no. I think it is so important not only to the heroine's choice, obviously, she needs that, but also I think it helps to develop the heroine. Like I just think it's a necessary part of the story, and the story would not be the same without the love triangle element. So I think I'm gonna give it a 5-star for the love triangle-ness of it. And again, there's no weak leg of the triangle, which I think I would like dock a star for. So I'm gonna add that all together. I think we get 12. So overall 4, which I feel like is pretty solid for this book and might be one of the highest rated books that we've had in this series thus far. So I'm feeling pretty good and I'm ready to go into a book that I haven't read before to see if the love triangle-ness holds up and if it's as good as this book. I think I'm gonna start in on the Black Swan affair. I'm gonna get 30 to 50% in and I'll let you know my thoughts and feelings. All right, can I be 100% honest with y'all? I have already filmed this clip before and I lost it, which is so disappointing because I feel like I really waxed poetic about this book and I really shared my in-depth thoughts and feelings on how fucking unhinged this shit is. So let's talk about the Black Swan affair by K.L. Krieg. This, I believe, was a recommendation from a fellow booktuber. And so I went in expecting it to be a good time, you know, zesty fun. It's a time. This book is about our main character, Maverick. She is torn between 2 men, Kale and Killian. Kale is her childhood best friend who she has always been best friends with and has never seen him as anything more. I believe they're like the same age. Despite not having feelings for him, she's going to marry him. She's like at the altar about to marry this man who she does not love, and she's doing it to spite the actual love of her life, Kale's older brother Killian. And I was like initially, oh yeah, sign me the fuck up. If there's one thing I love, it is the trope that is my boyfriend or my husband's brother. Like that is angsty scandal waiting to happen and like the ultimate love triangle. So I was like, yeah, okay, that sounds fantastic. That sounds phenomenal. Sign me up. However, those dreams were quickly shattered when I started reading this book. It's just genuinely kind of bizarre the way that things are playing out. There are so many side characters in this story. I genuinely don't think I've ever read a book with this many side characters in my life. We get to learn about these side characters' nicknames, and they are never relevant. They're like relevant for one scene and then they go away, and I'm like, why did we spend 2 pages describing this person's backstory, how Maverick knows them, why Maverick thinks they're a bitch? Like, it just doesn't make sense. So we have that. We also have this sort of like, I think it's dual timeline situation where one of the men is injured and in the hospital, and she's blaming the other man for putting that guy in the hospital, and we don't know who's who. We don't know who she's going to end up with. Is it going to be the love of her life, who's also, might I mention, married to her sister, or is she going to end up with the guy that she's married to and she's falling in love with? You know, couldn't tell ya. I couldn't tell ya. I mean, I could because I finished this book already, but wow. What a book it is. It's just a frustrating read. There's so much sex in this story. There's so little in the way of romantic relationship development, and I have no idea why this heroine wants to be with Killian. Like, you keep telling me, oh, he is my one true love, and I'm like, in what universe? Like, what do you see in this man? I understand that the allure of Dick can be mesmerizing. I just don't really seem to understand why she would waste her time on this garbage. But I don't know, y'all. Am I ever gonna catch a break? Am I ever going to find a good love triangle romance that isn't the one that I know that I like? I really thought this trope was going to surprise me, and like I was going to prove to y'all all that love triangles were amazing, but I don't think that's true. All right, roll the final clip. Okay, so I hung on through the end of the book. I was able to finish it by some miracle, and I gotta say, like, it definitely wasn't worth finishing. I was really expecting this book to be deeply romantic just because of the beginning of the book. Well, like dramatic, but also romantic, because, you know, it's a love triangle, but like she's in love with her husband's brother. Oh my god, like how is this going to play out? It played out kind of exactly how I predicted. Not exactly, but like pretty similar to how I predicted. I just really feel like this book was all over the place. It's so disappointing because I really feel like the idea was really there. Execution just definitely wasn't. And I went and looked at reviews to see if anyone else kind of felt the same way, and I found like 1, maybe 2 reviews who gave this book less than 4 or 5 stars. So like maybe I am just on my own in terms of my thoughts and feelings on this one, but I just really don't recommend this one as a love triangle romance that is just deeply romantic and also like has equal legs of the triangle. Because really, here's the thing. Killian, his only purpose was to create conflict, in my opinion, in the book. He really doesn't have any traits that are shown to be compatible with the heroine. Like, it couldn't be more different than what he doesn't know. And here's the thing, I don't think like every romance has to feel the same or like be executed the same. This doesn't have to be the most deeply romantic, but it does need to show me why 2 characters should be together or why the heroine has been pining for this man forever. I really had no idea, to be honest, at the end of the book, why she had been so obsessed with this guy. Like, I just did not get it. It was kind of a train wreck start to finish. I also like, I feel like if you're going to make it as nuts as it was, I feel like go all the way, because the ending, the secret reveal as to why Killian couldn't be with Maverick the entire time made no fucking sense. I mean, it did, but also it was just so dumb, I guess. Like, why couldn't you tell her why you couldn't be with her so she'd at least understand and maybe forgive you? I don't know. It was just like very goofy on 10. And I think I posted that on Goodreads. I was like, you know what? I always debate making new shelves on Goodreads because like I don't want it to be overwhelming if someone's trying to find something that I've read, you know, or if they're looking for certain recommendations. But good lord, it took everything within me not to create a shelf just titled Goofy, because this book was goofy. Oh, one other thing that's stupid before I like tell you my final rating and stuff for this book is that her name was Maverick and her nickname was Mavs or Mav by Kale, but everyone else called her Mavericky. In what fucking universe is that a nickname? Makes no sense to me. Just goes to show some stuff is nonsense, okay? So my overall rating for this is clearly a 2-star read. I could have given it a 1 star, but I'm feeling generous, and I was gonna say it wasn't offensive. There were a couple of offensive things in this book, I will say. The writing wasn't terrible, okay? It wasn't good, but it wasn't terrible, okay? 2 stars. In terms of how sexy this book was, I think some people could make the argument that this was pretty sexy since there are so many sex scenes, but if that is the only way that you're developing the relationship between Kale and Maverick, again, sorry, not impressed. Like, that's not romantic. Where's the romantic relationship development? I need that for a sexy book, right? Like, that's necessary, crucial component. 2 stars. And then, did this book need to be a love triangle? I'm also gonna give it 2 stars. I just like, we're keeping things simple today, okay? Like, we're keeping things simple in this here vlog. I just feel like, frankly, the love triangle of this book was unnecessary because there was no effort made to show us why Killian was a good choice, besides the fact they were like banging it out and she was attracted to him. That's it. That was all that I got from that. Why would you marry his brother and still pine after him if the only thing he has going for him is like good dick? I just don't get it, okay? 2 stars. All the way around 2 stars. So, you know, we've been having times in this video. We have a 4-star read, we have a 2-star read, and, you know, I think it can only go up from here, or it could get much, much worse, who's to say. But I'm actually going to move on to Serenading Heartbreak by Ella Fields. I don't know if I've read books by this author before. I kind of feel like I have, but it's not overly long. I don't know anything about it. I'm assuming maybe it's like music related, which could be fine, or it could be horrible. Who knows? The world's our oyster today, and we're really gonna figure out what's good and what's bad together, all right? I'm gonna update you once I'm, you know, an adequate length of the way through this book, probably 50% in. You know, maybe we'll find another just heartbreaking, delicious love triangle romance. I feel like yesterday I mentioned that like I would film in the daytime for the next clip, and that's just not how the cookie crumbles. I'm in a similarly oversized gray sweatshirt today. It is indeed nighttime. I am here to talk about love triangle romances yet again, so hope you like the scenery because it's obviously not changing for a while. I am like 35-40% into Serenading Heartbreak by Ella Fields. This is the recommendation that I got off of Amazon. I just searched up love triangle romance. This one came up. I think there might have been another one, but it was like 500 or 800 pages, and I was like, you know what? Not doing that today. So instead, I decided to pick up Serenading Heartbreak by Ella Fields. This book reminds me a lot of The Words by A. Jade, but like love triangle edition. So our main character, Stevie, there's a reason why I couldn't remember her name immediately. I'll get there. Stevie, our heroine, falls for her brother's best friend, who is the guy that lives across the street, who is neglected and abused by his parents. His name is Everett, and he has the voice of an angel and just innate musical ability, right? He like comes over every day to like kind of get lessons from the heroine's mom and also just to like practice his guitar skills. So he spends a lot of time around Stevie. They kind of fall for each other, but it's a will they won't they sort of, we can't be together because you're my best friend's brother and you're going on tour and like whatever. So they do have some moments, some sexual chemistry, blah, blah, blah. Okay, yeah, we get it. We know where the story's going, right? So they go on tour. Stevie is devastated because obviously Everett is fucking other people while he's gone. Of course, our girl has to live her own life, and she's a year or two younger than her brother and her brother's best friend. She's going to college now while they are on tour, and she meets this guy named Aiden Prince. He is the star, is it baseball player at her college? And he's really charming, and immediately upon seeing her, he's like, I'm gonna marry you. You're beautiful, you're stunning, amazing. But he doesn't come on too strong and too insta-lovey. I feel like he's just very determined, and they've gone on a couple of dates. One of these dates, she ends up seeing Everett playing at the bar, and he looks right at her. I think it's gonna be a love triangle between Aiden, the baseball player, the like, I don't want to say straight-laced, but like the golden child, and then Everett, who's like kind of the bad boy, blah, blah, blah. I say that, like Aiden definitely has a history. His mom, I think, died of suicide, and his dad and him were not that close or something like that. So like he definitely has, you know, his own things going on. I think this book has potential in a lot of ways. I think this one is certainly better than The Black Swan Affair. I don't think it's as good as What He Doesn't Know. I think my problem with this book, and I'm gonna have problems with a lot of these books, I'm thinking, like, I think love triangles are gonna be sadly a trope that I love that just like really doesn't fucking deliver hardly ever. So don't expect this to be like an upbeat video, okay? Let's just not expect it. I like this book because I feel like the heroes are fairly well written. I feel like the story is plotted and paced well. The writing is fine. My issue is that like the heroine has no ambitions. She has no dreams. We kind of get peripheral information about her enjoying flowers and plants. She's working part-time at a florist shop, I believe. And at the beginning of the book, the opening is her digging around in flower beds. So like, I guess she has that going for her, but this story is just so not about her. I feel like I couldn't even remember her name because she just has such little influence on the story as a whole. It's like everything just kind of happens to her and she doesn't get much influence over anything really. She just kind of like lets the guys in her life decide. And I don't know that I love that. I mean, it's definitely self-insert and sometimes I find myself getting lost in the story, but then I take myself back a step and I'm like, wait, but what does she want? And also like, who the fuck is this person? Like she doesn't really have much of a character, much of a personality. Like it's sad because both of the guys are like enamored with her and think she's so beautiful and so interesting. And I'm like, I'm not seeing evidence of that. She must be just stunningly beautiful to where y'all can forget everything. She's not the worst. She's not a YA heroine in the 2000s or whatever, but I don't know. I think I just have high standards for romance and I want there to be other stories surrounding the romance. I think to me that's like the perfect story, right? You've got character development on the part of both the hero and the heroine. You've got them growing together. You've got her also like pursuing other things and like having to heal from trauma or figure out what she's doing with her life, like finding a new career path or, you know what I mean? Like something. And Stevie doesn't have anything really. Yeah, I guess you could say she's in college and she's like, you know, getting a degree. I'm not saying that's insignificant, but I am saying that like she's never once really talked about it. She also has a best friend who has like no personality beyond liking Stevie's brother Hendrix. So it's fine. I think this is probably going to be higher rated than again The Black Swan Affair, but it's not amazing. I think it's probably like 3-star material. I think if you're looking for like a rock star romance love triangle thing, like I think this would work for you, but I think AJ's The Words is probably better. It doesn't have the love triangle aspect, I don't believe, but at least like the heroine and the hero like want things in that book, I believe. Well, I recall it's been a while since I read that one, but that's kind of where I'm at. I will get back to you tomorrow, maybe in the daylight, for my final thoughts and feelings. I finished Serenading Heartbreak. This actually turned out to be dog shit, and I couldn't be more disappointed if I tried. I was having a good time with this book. I was excited about the prospect of her like potentially getting with this guy who was actually going to be good for her and not this piece of shit that she's currently, you know, pining after, lusting after. But basically this book is just a series of who is she going to end up with, because she like goes between the two guys. Like each of them kind of like fuck up, or like, I don't know, she keeps going back to Everett and I'm like, why are you doing this? He's a garbage man of a person. But she keeps doing that, and eventually, of course, you know, because protected sex would be too smart, she gets pregnant by him. And I don't care if it's spoiling. I don't care. She gets pregnant by him, and instead of just like following her heart and, you know, again, ending up with the better guy, she is like, you know what? He's my child's father. We're gonna end up together. How uninspired. There are attempts at like reconciliation and or rehab on the part of Everett, which is like kind of nice, I suppose. But again, it wasn't enough to overcome like how mind-numbing it was to continue to read this book. And it's wild like how that switch kind of seemed to flip at the 50% mark, because before that I was really like, okay, this is so promising. No, this was a 2-star read. Are we shocked? Are we surprised? We're just adding to the list of 2-star reads. In terms of the sexiness of this book, there was a lot of sex. Maybe not as much as some of the other books, but there was a decent amount of sex. But I don't really find any of the sex in this book sexy. Like to me, this is like 2-star sexy, like probably more like 1 star, frankly. Not it at all. And then you've got the love triangle factor. I don't believe this book needed to be a love triangle. I've read other books like this. I actually read The Words by A. Jade earlier this year, which was similar but not a love triangle, and it was successful because she just focused on the relationship between this kind of like damaged rock star and our heroine. And I kind of wish that had been this book. Like I don't think we needed to bring in a third party to the bullshit. I don't think he deserved that, frankly. So again, in terms of like love triangle-ness, I'm gonna go 1 star. And actually, did I already say 1 star for the sexiness? What the fuck does that even leave us with at this point? 2 plus 2 divided by 3. That's a 1.33, my friends. I think that's the lowest rated book that we have so far. I'm not shocked or surprised because I did not enjoy this. If anything, I feel like I want to rate it just lowly because of the potential and the promise that just didn't work out. So I'm gonna continue to over blush. I'm gonna move on to our next book. All right, friends, hello. We are resuming the vlog. I took a break for a little bit because, as you may or may not have guessed, this has been really hard on me. I have not had this bad of luck, I think, in this video series to date, or at least it hasn't affected me like it has this time around, okay? And so I had to take a little bit of a break for my mentee health, okay? And I'm back and I'm ready to talk about more love triangle romances. Are either of the ones that I've started good? No, but it's fine. We're gonna talk about it, okay? I'm 50% into Transcend by Julie Ann, and I have read one other book by Julie Ann in the past, or at least attempted to, and it was not a success. It was The Naked Fisherman, which I think everybody seems to just go gaga over, but I really didn't like what I read of that book. It was just kind of weird and it just was not my vibe. Also, like the heroine in that was homophobic, and I know she's like gonna grow out of that, but like, I don't know if that's for me, okay? So I was unsure going into this one, but I had been assured that this was a great love triangle romance, right? So I picked it up, and it's a book, okay? It certainly is a book. It's about our main character, who at the moment I can't remember the name of, but her name's Swayze. What am I talking about? Of course I know her name. At the beginning of the book, it opens with her talking about someone picking their nose, and also talking about the fact that her maxi pad is stuck to her downstairs hairs. So that was really quite the opening that I was not expecting for this book, right? But the story follows our main character Swayze. She's always been labeled as smart, but her parents always think that like she's a genius and that her like potential is just untapped, I guess. So her parents have always had some sort of like unrealistic expectations surrounding her. And now I think her father has passed away. Her mom is kind of grieving, and our heroine isn't like that upset, I guess, about her dad's death, which is a little bit weird, but she's graduated college. She has a hot motorcycle loving boyfriend, and she just got a job as the nanny to this guy whose wife just died, okay? And the baby is a baby. Wow, that's, look at me being good at saying things. The mom died in childbirth. Yeah, fucking tragic. The hero of the story, at least I'm assuming he's the hero, one of the heroes maybe, he is grieving and he is kind of a grump, but our heroine seems to know everything about him, and this is kind of where her genius is coming in. We're finding out that she knows things about people that she shouldn't know. Like she'll see someone on the street and she will know a lot about their past. Not everybody that she meets or everyone that she passes by, but like, you know, enough to where it's a recurring pattern. The heroine really feels like she knows the guy who she's nannying for, and knows things about his childhood that she shouldn't know because she's 15 years younger than him. And I guess that's where the love triangle part comes in. She's going to fall in love with Nate, who is the, you know, dad of the child she nannies, and she's already in a romantic relationship with this guy who's like perfect for her. At least we're supposed to be convinced that he's perfect for her, although I don't think we were introduced well to their relationship, okay? He's a really nice guy, or at least he seems pretty nice, and his family seems functional, but the way this book is written, y'all, it's just weird. It is just a strange book, and I want to like it. it. I want to be invested in this story. In some ways, it kind of reminds me of Parallel by Elizabeth O'Rourke. It's got kind of that like otherworldly kind of woo-woo, like what happens, you know, beyond the great whatever time travel. I don't know. I don't think there's time travel involved in this one, but you know what I mean. It's a romance that's got some like otherworldly elements, right? Not necessarily a fantasy romance, but definitely not a super traditional romance. So I don't know what to think about this one, to be honest. I guess at this point I want the heroine to get with the hero, and by that I mean I want her to get with the dad, with the guy that she nannies for, but I don't know. The writing's just weird, okay? The writing's weird. I wish I had some like really coherent, beautiful things to say about this to tell you exactly how I'm feeling. Maybe the thing is that I don't actually have many feelings about this book. I just am sort of like indifferent, and I just sort of, I don't know. I want to have some luck with a book, but I just don't think it's gonna happen because I'm also 50% into the next book that we're gonna talk about, which I'll get to later, and it's also weird. So I don't know, y'all. Our love triangle romance is just bad. Is that what we're discovering? I mean, that's a great outcome. Not a great outcome, but is an expected outcome, I guess. It's just not the outcome I expected. So anyway, I'm gonna keep reading this book. I'll let you know how I feel about it when I'm done. Maybe I'll get back to you, and this will be the best romances I've read all year. Hello, ladies and germs. I finished Transcend, and it transcended my expectations. Actually, it didn't. It was fine. It transcended my expectations in the sense that I'm going to give this one 3 stars instead of 2, which I think is an upgrade. And I think, frankly, is semi-restoring my faith in love triangle romances. This one was a little kooky-ooky for me. Like I was trying to tell y'all, like there definitely is an element of the supernatural at play, and Nate is definitely like talking about that a lot, and he definitely believes in that shit, and that's fine, I guess. Cool. What to really say? I mean, the story just carries on with heroine taking care of baby, getting closer to Nate, but fucking the shit out of Griffin, the motorcycle boy, who's her age, and she's not had sex with Nate, and I don't even think they've kissed. So I also did read spoilers for the second book in the series, and she doesn't end up with who I want her to end up with. So I don't know if I like love the love triangle aspect here, but it was fine as a romance, I think. Maybe, I don't know. It was just a fine book. It was a book that like didn't piss me off too much, and you know what? I'm gonna count that as a fucking win. So 3 stars, okay? In terms of sexiness factor, I think I'm actually gonna give this one 3 stars as well, because I feel like this book wouldn't be what it is without the sexiness, and I think that the sex scenes actually between Griffin and Swayze. Nah, girl, I'm Swayze. Okay, my brain's not working so good today, folks. The sex between Swayze and Griffin was hot, so, you know, 3 stars in that regard. And then in terms of the love triangle factor, like, does this book need to be a love triangle? I think yes, because of the way that everything is set up. Because our heroine is already with Griffin, to make things interesting, you kind of need that love triangle element, so I do actually think I'm gonna give it a 3 all around. Am I just lazy and just wanting to like make everything round this time? Perhaps. That's my prerogative, and I'm allowed to do that because it's my video. So overall it was a 3. I think, like, would I recommend this one? I'm actually gonna say yes, because a lot of the reviews, a lot of people seem to really eat this shit up. A lot of people really like Julianne and don't mind her weird ass writing. So yeah, I don't know. I'm having like flashbacks to the beginning of this book. Let's move on to Gravity by Sarah Kate. Hot fucking mess. This book's about Nash, Alistair, and don't remember the heroine's name because it doesn't fucking matter. Her sister and her sister's boyfriend both pass away, I believe in a plane accident, and now our heroine's scared to fly in planes. Makes sense, fair enough. She is a stripper, she is living her best life kind of, and she gets approached by her sister's boyfriend's brother, Nash, and Nash is like, let's fuck, or give me a lap dance or something like that. They have sex. I guess Alistair knows that his son has had sex with this chick, and he approaches her and is like, hey, come to this private island with me and my son. I just need you to like bring him back to life because he doesn't love any of the things that he used to love, and he's not acting the same. He's acting like a fuckboy, and like historically he has not been a fuckboy. So she's like, okay, like fine, sounds good. Oh, he's gonna pay her too. But the thing is, even though she's helping Nash, she actually has a thing for Daddy Alistair. So things are complicated, and there's been some finger banging. I have to say, to this book's credit, it made finger banging seem kind of hot. Is it particularly high on the sexiness scale or the true romanticism romance scale? No, but I'm not hating it. The heroine is a bit of a doormat, and she is unwilling to kind of like say what she really wants, but I also think that she is traumatized because her sister's passed away. So I'm hoping that she's able to like find solace and heal and, you know, whatever throughout the course of the story. Do I really give a fuck if that happens? No, but, you know, I'm hoping for her sake that that is kind of the case. I am listening to audiobook. The narration from the female audiobook narrator is pretty bad, but otherwise it's been fine. And that's about as good as I can say for this goddamn video. So I'm gonna go ahead and finish this book, and we're gonna be done with the video. God's good. Love triangles or not. All right, well, I finished Gravity by Sarah Kate, and It was a book. I feel like I've said that for pretty much all of these, but it was a book that I read on recommendation, I guess, by Instagram. I didn't totally hate this book, and I was actually ultimately pleased with the ending, but I don't know that I appreciated the scene where all three of our characters are getting it on together. I felt like that was maybe crossing a line, and maybe, again, I'm too much of a fuddy-duddy, but I just wasn't super into that. I also feel like this story focuses a lot on like pain and on grief, but none of the characters really handle it in a healthy way, and I don't think they ever really get to a healthy place with it. I'm not saying that like you can't find solace in other people, but like hurting someone while you have sex with them, I don't really understand like how that is helping to heal you, and that's never really corrected in my humble opinion. So yeah, this was not the success I wanted it to be, but it also wasn't terrible, and some of the sex scenes were hot. I liked the scenes between Alistair and Zara, so I don't know, this one's tough. Let's try to rate this one. I'd say like overall it's a 3 for me. It wasn't terrible. It just like wasn't my most favorite. In terms of the sexiness factor, I actually think I'm gonna give this a 4, because if I overlook that one scene, I do think there was a sexiness to this book. You know what? No, actually, we're gonna 3-star that. I think the couple of issues I had with it like definitely brought it down a couple of stars, but I do think Sarah Kate does a good job with her sex scenes. And in terms of the love triangle aspect to this book, I think I'm also gonna give it a 3. I feel like this story ultimately did need the love triangle, similar to What He Doesn't Know, right? Like we have characters dealing with some hard-hitting things, and they find solace in each other, and they kind of figure their own shit out by being together. So I do think this kind of needed the love triangle, but I do think it would have been fine if it had just been an age gap romance. So ultimately, I think this is going to be a 3-star read for me. That feels a little generous, but like I think I'm okay with that. This one, like looking at this in comparison to Transcend, I do think I feel similarly, right? So we're going 3-star. It's weird because I'm looking at the ratings for these books, and I feel like the overall average is going to be higher than I expected, because to be honest, I did not have the best time. You know what? No, the overall rating for this video is a 2.66, which I feel like is on the lower side of all of these trope videos, like if you do a comparison right here as to how the other ones went. And you know what? I think that checks out. I wanted to love triangles. I love What He Doesn't Know, and I would highly recommend that one still. But I think that love triangles are just still tricky to pull off. I think when they're pulled off well, it's one of my favorite tropes, but I'm finding that maybe it's just really hard to pull off well. So I hope that you got something from this. I hope that you enjoyed something about this. This is not my most favorite video to film, but I'm glad that I stuck it out and I'm glad I finished it. The next trope that I'm going to be trying is why choose. So if you have any good why choose recommendations, please put them in the comments down below. I will be selecting one of your comments for the next video. So that'll come in a couple weeks, actually. It's coming sooner than you would think, but thanks so much for watching this video. I love you all so much, and I will see you tomorrow.